After I did the abusive testing with the Albion Berserkr, it's now the Berserker's turn to endure the same harsh treatment. So again, thin to moderate branches. And now here's some tougher stuff. This really depends on the angle. If I get the right angle, it doesn't put a whole lot of stress on the blade. But this kind of thing, when it gets stuck and you have to pull it back out, that is certainly not ideal. I already talked about the whole thing of abusive testing, why you would hack into wood anyway, and I don't really have to repeat that here. This blade being single-edged and with a relatively thick spine is of course quite a bit different from the Gadjald. It is, however, also very flexible. Throughout these tests I was switching back and forth between handshake grip and hammer grip. I personally found the hammer grip a bit more effective, even though there are good arguments in favor of the handshake grip. I just found that I could deliver more force, and the handshake grip made it a little more likely for me to throw off the edge alignment. Because it hit at a bad angle, partially with a flat, it flexes a lot more. And by the way, if my voice sounds bad, sorry about that. I've been feeling kind of sick the past couple of days and I've had a cough, so yeah, not ideal. But show must go on, right? I tried to cut this branch in a single stroke, but it didn't quite work. It was each time almost entirely. In this case, you can see there is a bit of scalloping. So I must have distorted the edge alignment towards the end. But either way, this thing cuts really well, as I expected. And it certainly flexes more than I thought it would. And most importantly, it is, once again, extremely durable. You'll get to see the really harsh abuse I did with it to really test its limits. This is not something I would suggest you do. So after this one, you'll see this is a very thick branch. This is almost a small tree in and of itself. Also pretty hard. And this puts a lot of stress on the blade, especially since I did a few almost horizontal cuts, well, pretty much horizontal cuts, and those are very hard on the blade. So I did expect some issues there, which is why I kept checking it to see if the blade is still looking okay. Now, these chops are alright, although they're still pretty hard. That is problematic, of course. But mainly things like this right here. This kind of angle is exactly perpendicular to the wood grain. So this is where the wood offers the most resistance, and that's the kind of thing that can really mess a blade up if it's not made well. And there it goes. So you can see right here, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, looks like I finally did something to affect the blade. Towards the tip, it's bent a little now. So I try to bend it back into shape while at the same time also demonstrating the flexibility. It flexes pretty far and returns to true. So this is the kind of thing that I would not advise you do, because this really stresses the material. If you keep bending it back and forth, you can get microfractures that get worse with use, so eventually it may break. It would take a while, most likely, but it can. Perfect. Okay, so I managed to straighten it back out. In fact, so perfectly that I wouldn't even blame you if you didn't believe me that this was really recorded afterwards. But it is. I just straightened it. I also checked to make sure that the pommel and guard haven't warped. They're still in alignment, because that's something that happened to me once with a cheaper Viking sword. I did some wood chopping and the pommel was just permanently twisted out of alignment. Didn't happen. And here's the edge after the wood chopping. I have to clean the blade, of course, but there is no edge damage. Sorry if the focus isn't completely dead on. It's a little difficult for me to see here in the sunlight. And a final thing I would like to point out, I haven't personally handled any original finds of this type of sword, so I can't say for sure, but from what I've read, they would have been a lot softer and not as flexible as this. So it's, in that regard, it's not an accurate representation of a Viking sword of the time, but this is the modern improved version, made of pure metal and tempered differently, so these swords are not the exact same. But you also have to keep in mind that there was a lot of variation back in the day. Different swordsmiths had different skill levels, different materials available, there were regional differences between periods, and all of that. So there were poor quality swords, really expertly made swords for the time, and anything in between. At the end of the video, I'll show you a close-up of the blade after I cleaned it. So once again, Albion quality, you do get what you pay for. I hope you like this test, and thanks for watching.